He wants me to take the lowest spot, not to pursue fame or success. Jesus wants me to embrace a certain simplicity in which I maybe don't feel the need to strive upwards, but instead just focus on myself and my own health and well-being. And those sentiments aren't inherently evil or anything like that, but when you realize that much of Western culture is beginning to embrace mediocrity as a higher good worth pursuing, you begin to see the danger here. And it's not just a danger to the dignity of the human person as an individual, but really a danger to society as a whole. Complacent and coasting people are dead people. I don't care how much extra time they have to focus on their health and well-being, they're at risk of a spiritual death. And I'll tell you why. Let's take a look at today's gospel from another perspective. Jesus commands us to occupy the lowest place at this wedding banquet. I don't see this as an invitation for us to somehow be resigned to a sense of the bare minimum in life, but rather an invitation to the humility that we should all embrace. As human beings, we are dust, right? That's just the fact of the matter. This is what we hear on Ash Wednesday. As human beings, we are dust. On our own, we are nothing. St. Paul reminds us of this, right? He says, "What have I to boast in other than the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ?" And for that reason, the lowest spot at the table is rightfully ours to take. We should never see ourselves worthy as anything more than the lowest place, at least by our own merits, right? It's not for us to seek a higher place at the table because we don't inherently deserve that. But in the story of salvation, an incredible invitation is offered to us. By God's grace, we are called beyond our merits. We are invited to leave behind the lowest place that is deservedly ours and to embrace the highest place, which we do not deserve. We are invited to have our frail humanity to be wed to eternal divinity. It's a wedding banquet, after all, right? Brothers and sisters, the question is not how will we react if we are called to a higher place at the table, but how will we react when we are called to a higher place at the table? And thankfully for us, that when has already been well established. It's the moment that Jesus Christ mounts the wood of the cross for our salvation, for the salvation of all mankind. That when is the moment when heaven is open to us, and we move beyond the status of mere humanity, and we are invited to partake in the divine life of God. Now, all that's left for us is to accept this invitation offered to us. We can only sit at the highest place at the table if we have first occupied the lowest place. We can only be united with divinity if we have first embraced our frail humanity. We can only rise from our lowliness when we see everything that we have in our lives, our bodies, our intellects, our specific abilities as gifts of God to be embraced, because they are gifts that we do not earn on our own, nor do we deserve them. We can only rise from our lowliness when we see everything in our life as an opportunity to make the most of what God has given to us so that we may be worthy of this invitation that we have been given, this invitation offered to us. This is why the complacent person is a dead person. The complacent person is stuck in the lowest place because he does not accept God's free invitation. He sees that his life should be more. He knows that his life could be more, that he has the ability to grow in fortitude and in sacrifice and in all sorts of virtue, but he rejects such an offer. Instead, he quietly resigns. He quietly quits, believing that anything above the lowest place is not worth the effort. And so there he stays. at the lowest place. And that's the same place that's occupied by the pompous man, Jesus tells us, who sees himself worthy of the highest place, but is humbled when he discovers that his humanity is worth nothing without the grace of God, that he has no reason to boast, that the gifts that he believes he holds by his own merits can be taken away as quickly as they came. Brothers and sisters, the host of the banquet is inviting us to the highest place. And all that's required of us is that we embrace our humanity in humility and see everything that God has given us as a gift to be embraced. God took your frail humanity and offered you godliness. What are you going to do about that? He won this victory for you. Are you going to claim it? Are you going to claim the ultimate gift that you've been given by embracing the daily gifts that you've been given? These days, I hear people saying all the time, talking about a desire to avoid the grind, avoid hard work, and just instead indulge in self-care. And people say, oh, I just want to make sure I'm happy. I want to make sure that I'm content. And of course, we all need our boundaries in life. We need to be aware of our limitations and so forth. It's important to be mindful of our mental health, our physical health. But guys, here's the truth. Nothing will crash your mental health and your physical health faster than being withdrawn and complacent. Nothing zaps you of energy or increases anxiety faster than to give up and to refuse to accept the great gifts that God has given you. What a sadness it would be, I think, to one day stand before God and hear him say, I offered you a higher seat and you didn't take it. I offered you a higher place at the table and you chose not to take it. You chose to quit. You chose mediocrity. Maybe you didn't verbalize it, but you did it anyway. You took the lowest seat, not out of humility or out of an awareness of your humanity, but out of complacency or even laziness. The kingdom of heaven is not made up of quiet quitters. It's made up of quiet warriors. It's made up of people who realize their frail humanity and see everything as a gift worthy of being embraced. It's made of people who go about the daily business of proving themselves worthy of the share in divine life that's offered to them by God's invitation, by this gift of grace. It's made up of people who decide that even though it's very difficult, even though it's very hard, they will spend their lives choosing to daily become better fathers, better husbands, better mothers, better wives, better workers, better athletes, better students, better servants, better stewards. It's made up of people who decide that God's invitation to a higher place means becoming more charitable, resisting sin with greater vigor, praying more, fasting more, sacrificing more, holding less of themselves for themselves, and giving more of themselves to others. It's made up of people who achieve great things, not because they think they're great, but because they know they're nothing. They know they're nothing and that God is raising them up. So they take the invitation that they've been offered and they bring others with them. They lift others up. And none of that is done in flamboyance or in arrogance, right? It's done in a spirit of humility. The baseball player who crosses home plate after he hits a home run and points to the heavens, and the baseball player who crosses home plate after he hits a home run and celebrates his own greatness have accomplished the same exact thing, right? But only one is someone who took the lowest place at the table and accepted God's invitation to the highest place as a gift. Surround yourself with such people. These are the people who will lift you up. The poor and the lowly in spirit. These are the people who will push you to be better. They might have nothing of material value to offer you in this life, but their gifts will accompany you into eternity. Don't leave this world feeling like you've quit, feeling like you were complacent, feeling like God gave you an incredible gift, and you turned your back and said, I'm okay with my own humanity. I'm okay with my base humanity, thank you very much. I see your invitation, and I'm just going to throw it in my junk mailbox. My generation can think of whatever fancy terms they want to explain something, but as far as I'm concerned, quitting is quitting, right? It's bad when it's on a job or on a team or on a project. It's worse when it's quitting on God, who has offered us everything. All we need to do is humbly accept this invitation to greatness, understanding that our frail humanity has been offered the highest place, a share in the divinity of God for all eternity.